Hello everybody, you're very welcome, and it's great to see so many keen customers signed up to this specific webinar. My name's Matt Bancroft. I'm one of the technical CAD advisors here at Concurrent Engineering. So whether you're new to Creo or a long-term customer, I hope the presentation will provide you with some valuable insight when dealing with the administrative aspects of your Creo software. Do please use the chat box within GoToWebinar if you have any questions or comments during the session. We'll be in touch with answers in due course. Also, we're extremely keen to hear your comments regarding today's webinar and would especially welcome any specific subject areas that you would like to see covered in future webinars. If there's something in particular that you'd like to find out more about, we would welcome a call or an email. So, you've made the decision to invest in Creo Parametric. You have at your disposal a cutting-edge, highly developed and powerful package which will give you and your team the confidence to design, analyse and develop high-quality products. The software is complex and sophisticated, but thankfully getting yourself set up and working is not such a difficult challenge. However, taking some sensible steps as you get started will ensure that you create a stable and tailored setup that fits your requirements and allows for growth. We'll spend the session working through these sensible steps, starting with creating your PTC support account so you can manage your software and licenses and keep up to date with new developments. We'll look at downloading your software and licenses, including the different setup options available for locked and floating licenses. And then the important task of installing Creo on your machine, ensuring that your CAD software runs smoothly and gives you access to the features and functions you need. And once your software is installed, we'll spend some time looking at the ways you can personalise your Creo, from environment options such as colours, backgrounds, through modelling and sketching settings that can save you unnecessary mouse miles and ensure that your software is comfortable and smooth to work with. We'll finally look at organising your modelling templates, making sure that your models meet your and your customers' requirements. This is not going to be the most fun half hour of your life, but it will give you a confident starting point and a knowledge that your carefully chosen design software is working to its full potential. Okay, so your first job is to create yourself a PTC eSupport account. This is beneficial in many ways. It allows you to manage your licenses and ensures that your software is compliant and that correct users have access to the correct license features. It also gives you access to downloadable assets, in this case your required version of Creo. It will also allow you to update or upgrade your version of Creo as new iterations are released throughout the year. The landing page here has been recently redesigned and now has a far clearer and easier to navigate layout. There's plenty of information here on product highlights, news and guides on upgrades and installations. Also importantly here is the knowledge base. This is a fantastic resource covering all technical aspects of PTC products. It's a brilliant place to go if you have a question to answer regarding Creo or have an issue or a problem to solve. So, creating a PTC eSupport account is essential really, but it takes just a few minutes. Go to this website, support.ptc.com, and here you can see a series of tabs at the top. You're going to register as a new customer. At this stage it will be useful if you had your service order number or service contract number to hand. So simply fill in the online form using your work email address and a sensible and memorable password. At the bottom of the form, either enter your SCN or SON as a security measure, and then enter the 3 underlined digits in the code at the bottom, and then simply submit the form, and you're up and running. As I mentioned, there's plenty of useful information on the landing page, and the most useful bit is found using the link on the right hand side of the Creo Parametric support page. As you can see, there's plenty of help available here with links to direct to useful areas of PTC support. On the left here you can see we've got the Help Centre and the Knowledge Hub, for example, some tutorials for new users or even advanced ones. You've got the planned update and upgrade and future platform support for new Creo releases, and on the right hand side we've got things like the Performance Advisor and the Installation Troubleshooter. But realistically at this stage your main port of call should be in the centre under the Licenses and Installation title. Okay, so what I'm going to do is go through the process as if I was a new customer who had recently bought Creo. And I'm going to go through the steps one at a time, hopefully clearly, for you to follow to make sure you get the licenses sorted, your software installed correctly, and your CAD software set up and ready to go. So now we've set up our PTC account, there are three main jobs to do. Firstly, from our PTC eSupport page, we're going to install our license onto our machine. This will ensure that you remain compliant and that your Creo software will start and work reliably. Secondly, we're going to download our Creo software itself. And then thirdly, and this is probably the most technical aspect of the process, we're going to install our Creo with the correct license options selected. Now none of this is technically difficult, you don't need to be an IT expert here by any means, but sticking to a plan and ensuring each step is done correctly and in the right order will mean that your Creo is installed properly and working from day one. When you purchase Creo, you also make decisions about what level of functionality you and your company require. Depending on the complexity of your workflow and product type, Creo offers many distinct levels of features and functions. The type of license you've purchased opens different options within the Creo software. Even the most basic license has some terrific features. For example, all Creo licenses give you the ability to do parametric surfacing, traditional solid modelling and sheet metal. And all current supported licenses also give you the ability to work with the framework extension, for example, intelligent fasteners and the inbuilt keyshot rendering facility. Some users opt to purchase further extensions, for example advanced assembly or ISDX, which is an advanced surfacing tool, or the GD&T Advisor, which is a terrific way to check your drawings, include all the requirements for compliant geometric dimensioning and tolerancing. To ensure that your Creo runs as needed and includes all the options you've selected, each installation requires a suitable license. If you're a lone worker, obviously you might just have the one license, whereas some companies are running in the hundreds. Irrespective of the scale of your business, all Creo users access their licenses from the same portal. Again, if we go to support@ptc.com with our email address and password, then select the Creo parametric page, and the link we need is top and center. Selecting this opens a new page with our available and currently installed licenses. So let's take a few moments to have a look here. At the top we've got 6 tabs essentially, and the two main ones we're going to be looking at are the license action ones here on the left, and then later on the download software, there's one on the right hand side. So if you go to the license actions and just on the drop down, I generally go for advanced search here. There are some options, quick licensing, things like that, but realistically the easiest way is just to go to license actions and then down to advanced search. Again, there are a few options here. So you can filter out your licenses according to sales order number or service contract number, for example. But again, certainly for a new customer, I recommend that you just go to the search button here at the bottom on the right hand side. And this opens this page where we have a list of you or your company's licenses. The two tabs on the left here show available licenses and currently installed licenses. Obviously as a new customer, your license will be here in the available license tab. Underneath you can see the list of licenses, their specific name, product code, the end date for support and other technical details such as your sales order number, service contract number, etc. To the left of the license you can see the blue plus icon. Clicking on that will give you some further details regarding the license itself, and to the left of this now a minus symbol is a tick box. So for your Creo to work correctly you need to install the license onto your workstation. In reality what you're actually doing is assigning your license to that particular machine. To do this we use the Mac ID, sometimes called the host ID of your computer. To find your host ID takes a couple of steps. On Windows, type into the search bar at the bottom left of your desktop CMD to open up the command prompt. and then I'll type in ipconfig /all. And you're looking for the physical address, usually of your Ethernet card. Now, the host ID itself is a series of letters and numbers separated by dashes. You can see an example here. Make a note of yours. So if we go back to the licensing page on support.ptc.com, and to install the license onto your machine, tick the checkbox to the left-hand side of the license you wish to assign, including any specific extensions if required. And then at the bottom of the page, here, press the Install License button. Now this new dialog box opens up. And at the bottom in this space here, enter the host ID of your machine. And you have the option here to have the license emailed to you either as a zip file or as a text file. I generally go for the text file. And then press Install License. The license will be emailed to your inbox. Now, good practice here is to save this particular file in a specific location on your machine. I generally create a new folder on my C drive, name it Creo License, and save the license files in there. So that's stage 1 done. The license has been installed onto your machine, and the next thing we need to do is download your Creo software. So let's do that, moving on to stage 2. To download your Creo software, go back to the home page on support.ptc.com. Now if you go to the Creo Parametric Support link again at the top right, you can see the link to download software here in the centre. Selecting this opens up your options for all the software you or your company have purchased. One thing to note here is that the newly purchased license under support is valid for any version of Creo, all the way back to even Wildfire, which is the precursor to Creo that we use today. It's extremely important that you understand here that Creo is not backwards compatible. So say for example your colleagues or customers are using Creo 6, you will need to match that version for the files to be fully compatible. If for example you then edited and saved the file in Creo 8 and sent it back, they would not be able to open it. So just one thing to be slightly aware of. Indeed, it's perfectly viable to have several versions of Creo on the same machine if required. Generally though, we would recommend that you install the most recent version if applicable. This will give you the most up-to-date, comfortable to use and advanced features available. As the software develops, each version of Creo will have several updates during its life cycle. You have several options here, and I would absolutely recommend one, that you use the Win64 and download the actual content to your machine, the installed media itself, and secondly also download and install the Help Center, which is an invaluable asset and a useful tool to get support and advice when using Creo, particularly for new users. So press these two links here, the HTTPS for Win64 and the Help Center, and give it a few minutes to download. My recommendation here, having done this several times, is to go and put the kettle on at this stage. So your first two stages are complete. You've installed your license, essentially assigning it to your MAC address of the computer, and you've also downloaded the install media for your selected version of Creo Parametric. The next step is to install Creo onto your machine, applying the license to it, ensuring that you select the correct aspects of the design software, including any required extensions. Now this is not a complicated process again, but taking a few steps and keeping organised pays dividends. The Creo download media will arrive in your downloads folder as a zip file. It's a big old file, normally around 5 GB. So the first job is to unzip the compressed folder. You've got a couple of options here, either using the extract all option from within Windows, or using a third-party piece of software, for example 7-zip. From here you can see when you open the folder that there are several included options. You need to go to the bottom here to setup.exe. Ideally right-click this and run as administrator. If you need any information about admin settings, speak to the IT department at work. Now this will open the PTC installation dashboard. Now on this first screen you see we're going to select Install Software and then go to Next. Here we have the license agreement. You can read if needed, and then select to agree to it, and also the checkbox underneath. And again select Next. This next section is where we're going to apply the license to the installation. In this section here, we can either drag the license that we installed earlier on, or using the folder icon, browse to your Creo license folder and the text file itself that we organised earlier on. The installer will check that the MAC address matches your machine, and then we'll start installing the license server on your machine. Now this handles and manages your license and can be updated at the end of each year's subscription, for example. The next page includes the options for the aspects of your Creo software that you wish to install. Of course, you need to click the Creo parametric box itself, but also if you have any further options regarding simulation, etc., do select them here. Here we're going to ensure that all our required extensions and the correct licenses themselves are included in the installation. At the top, if you go to Command Configuration tab, you can see we have two areas on the left and the right. You need to select the license itself and the extensions from the left hand side, and using the arrows in the centre, move them across to the right hand side to ensure they're included in the installation. If you don't have any specific extensions here, simply ensure that your Creo license is included in the right hand box. And again, from here, simply press Next and then press Install. You will see the bars going across as the different aspects of the installation media are put onto your machine. And on completion, simply select the Finish button on the bottom right hand side. You will then be presented with a new Creo parametric icon on your desktop. Now the first time you double click this, there might be a couple of warnings related to your firewall. Please select the particular choices at this point, ensuring that you follow company policies or your own personal guidelines. The process explained earlier went through what you need to do to install a license on a specific machine. In other words, locking a license to your MAC address. However, in many cases it may be that your license needs to be available to not just yourself, but also to your wider team. Perhaps you might have a team of 5 users all working on the same network. Now you may have purchased a license for all of them, or perhaps you've just purchased 3 licenses that are available as and when your engineers or designers are working. Now this working environment is supported in Creo with the use of floating licenses. Essentially, a floating license is installed with central license management software, either on a shared drive or a server. And in many ways the process of getting this set up is very similar to that of the locked licensed installation that we looked at earlier on. So let's take a few minutes just working through installing your floating license. Now a floating license can be simply installed locally onto your machine if required. In fact, this is how my license is on my own machine. But whether you're doing it locally or on the server, for it to work correctly you need to download and install a piece of software that will manage the allocation of your licenses. The software is called FlexLM or FlexNet and is available from your support page at ptc.com that we looked at earlier on. If we go to the Download Software area and then to this highlighted text, FlexNet Hardware Notes, a new page opens with a link to a PDF. In the PDF are links to download the FlexNet installation media. Now do check for compatibility if required. You can always call us and ask, but a good recommendation is to simply install the most recent version, which will be backwards compatible with all versions of Creo. Clicking this link here, LM Admin, will download the software. It's far smaller than the Creo download media. You might only have time here for a cold drink. With a floating license, you go through the same steps of assigning the license that we saw earlier to a specific machine, but in this case we assign the license or licenses to the MAC ID of the shared drive or server. Again, this will be emailed to you, and I'd also recommend, as before, that you save it to a specific folder, ideally on the server itself. As before, unzip the FlexLM download media and go to setup.exe. The process of assigning the license is actually simple here. As before, drag and drop the license, or using the folder icon, go to the location the license file is saved at, and FlexLM will install, normally just taking a minute or two. For your team to access the licenses, allowing Creo to start on their machines, when they install Creo, instead of dragging the license file into the box, you simply need to type 7788, which is the port used, then @ and then the name of the shared drive or server, for example 7788 @ design drive. and then the Creo installation will continue as before. Ensure that you select the correct licenses, extensions, etc. as we covered earlier. So that's the next stage completed. Well done. You've now got Creo installed and ready to work with. But before you continue, let's take a look at some of the options you have to personalise your version of Creo to your own requirements. As you can imagine, Creo is used worldwide by individuals and companies producing any number of different types of products, from complex surfaces to sheet metal, large installations to medical devices that are measured by the micron. So it pays good practice to spend a little bit of time here to make sure that your experience working with the software is comfortable, efficient, and limits the amount of actual mouse miles that are required from you. Now, there are a number of different levels of control you can have here, and this often depends on whether you are a lone worker or part of a larger organisation with an established plan. In the background of Creo, indeed when it starts up each time, it reads a file called a config.pro. This is a configuration file for your version of Creo, and essentially it's simply a text file with a list of options for different aspects of the software. To a new user this seems relatively complicated, and indeed there is quite a lot of new information here, but if you think of it as your options for how your software behaves, then things become a little simpler to manage. So let's take a look at some of the options you have to personalise your Creo parametric software installation. On your landing page as you open Creo, in the very top left corner you can see the File tab. Selecting this and then selecting Options at the bottom of the list opens up the various areas of how your version of Creo is displayed. So let's take a look at some of the ways you can control how your software performs. At the top under the Appearance label we have three options. The first of these is System Appearance. Here you can select the Creo theme, either leaving it default, selecting the light theme or the dark theme. Of course you can try all of these to see which one suits you best. Underneath here also you have a choice of options regarding the interface itself and indeed the system colours. Again, see which one suits you. Creo is loaded with a default set of colours for the display of different aspects of your design environment. Graphics, datums, geometry, sketcher, as you can see, can be modified to suit your own requirements or preferences, or indeed if you have any issues with colour blindness, for example. Next, on the left we see Model Display. This gives us a multitude of options regarding how the features on our models appear. Many of these options were designed originally for computers that weren't perhaps as powerful and efficient as today's. Of course, Creo can put a certain amount of pressure on your workstation and your graphics card, so again, do experiment with these. For example, you can specify where the datums stay visible as you move the model around, or whether you see datum curves or allow transparency. The third option, underneath Appearance, concerns the display of geometry. You can choose here different display types, the quality of those, and also whether your datums are shown with tags. This essentially means that your datums will be labelled on the screen, i.e. front, top, right, etc. Scrolling down, we'll see some further options including the display of constraints that are shown while sketching. You can specify the size and the colour scheme for these. Further down again, if you select the Sketcher label in the core group, you can select a few options that make your time sketching more efficient. For example, you may wish to automatically lock any modified dimensions, or thicken the sketching line itself. One option I would recommend here, for example, is that you make the sketching plane parallel to the screen, which saves you a mouse click every time you start a sketch. Importantly also, under Sketch Diagnostics, I would recommend that you select all of these checkboxes. This will give you a visual indicator of how your sketch is performing, and also when you've created a fully closed loop, for example. Further down again, in the Customize group, you have the options to personalise the ribbon at the top of the screen. This can include or deselect specific areas of modelling. Here you can see you can check or uncheck boxes for specific areas in the ribbon itself, or indeed add areas of interest that you might use often. Similarly, we can modify the Quick Access toolbar, which we find at the top left of the screen. By default, this includes options such as creating a new part, opening up an existing one, save, undo, etc. Now if you're an experienced user, you might know these preferences and set them up on your first use. However, if you are new to Creo, I would recommend taking a little time experimenting with these preferences and selections and find which ones suit you best. You always have the opportunity to change them at any stage, and I'm sure you'll soon find a selection of settings that will make your time using Creo comfortable and efficient. At the very bottom on the left hand side we have the configuration editor. This gives us direct access to the specific options related to how Creo performs. For example, this is where you can select a specific part template or tolerance standard. All the options you select or deselect at this stage will be copied to the text file, the config.pro, which is held on your machine or in a network drive. Depending on the size of your organisation, there may be some limits on what options you have access to controlling personally. Do speak to us about this, or if you have any questions, or better still, speak to your CAD admin manager at work. You can see here on my machine my config.pro is held in my documents folder currently, but I would recommend as good practice to create a specific CAD admin folder in a sensible location on your machine to store such related documents. It's probably a job I should get round to. When you do make a change to these settings at any stage, selecting OK at the bottom will bring this dialog box asking you whether you want to save the current settings to your permanent configuration file or not. Very often you might want to change the options temporarily, in which case select No, so they're just set for the current session. Or if you do want the current settings to continue next time you open Creo, select Yes and then save the configuration file. The config file can be also manually edited. As you see here, it's simply a list of options held in a text file. Changes can be made from within Creo as we've just seen, or indeed you can type directly into the text file and press save when you complete. One important note here is that the configuration file is loaded each time you start Creo, from the shortcut on the desktop. If we right click the icon here and select Properties in the Shortcut tab, you can see we have a box labelled Start In. This should always reference the location of your config file, so if you've saved the file to a specific directory location, ensure that you copy and paste that into the section here, so all your preferences are kept each time you start work. By default, Creo includes a series of templates for parts, assemblies, sheet metal, ECAD items, drawings, etc. Now these are essentially a preset series of pre-configured items, for example units, datums, layers. The default units in the part, sheet metal and assembly techniques are imperial units, i.e. inches and pounds. However, most of our customers in the UK and Ireland will require metric units to be the default when they're measuring, inspecting and indeed designing parts. Of course, every company will have its own specific requirements related to templates, and there are a multitude of options that you can control. Some companies indeed use what are called start parts for all of their designs, which will have a preset combination of requirements for every part and assembly. Now this is of course a more involved and comprehensive task, and one that is individual to each company's requirements. However, setting your part, assembly, sheet metal default unit is a straightforward task, and one that can be controlled and stored in your config file. So let's take a look at this process. If we go up to the top left to File, then down to Options, and then the bottom, here we have the Configuration Editor. Now we're looking for three specific entries here: part, assembly and sheet metal templates. As you can see, next to each of the inputs is a drop down. Selecting this and then Browse allows us to go and search for the specific template file. It's found in your Creo loading directory, usually C, Program Files, PTC, Creo 9 for example, Common Files, Templates. You can see here we have the full range of potential templates for all areas of modelling and documentation. To select the required template units, simply pick the appropriate file here and then save it to your configuration file. We'll cover the process for setting up drawing templates in a future webinar. Here at Concurrent Engineering, we have a team of technical experts offering support and guidance on the entire suite of PTC's class-leading design and manufacturing solutions. If you do have any particular questions or queries regarding the setup of your Creo license or the software, we're always happy to help. Our customers on support have access to our technical support team. We're available by phone on this number and also through our support portal on our website. I'm sure that you'll find you'll quickly become confident with the management of your Creo software and related licenses, but if you do have any specific concerns, do get in touch. As a Creo user, you have access to PTC's Learning Connector, a valuable and constantly updated resource of how-to guides, tutorials and technical white papers. And it's recently been updated with a modernised and simpler to navigate user interface. I would certainly recommend saving it as a favourite on your browser. As with any new skill, from playing a musical instrument to driving a car, we all have the option to learn by ourselves. There are endless videos available online of varying quality which aim to give you an overview of the features and functionality available in Creo. I'm sure all of us at some stage have undertaken some online training, where if we're really honest about it, we probably didn't read all of the content before we press next. And access to online training and materials doesn't guarantee that we'll sit down and commit to working through exercise after exercise. There's plenty of research done on how we learn most effectively. As the graphic here shows, as with any new skills, investing in structured and managed training will ensure that you gain correct knowledge and skills more quickly, and with a greater likelihood of retaining them long term. I mentioned at the start of the webinar that Creo is a powerful and complex piece of design software. Over its 25 plus years of development, it's added new functionality including many emerging technologies such as generative design, simulation-driven lattices, 5-axis high-speed milling, multi-body modelling and many more. We deliver training courses to universities and industry, covering all areas of Creo's functionality, from multi-day fundamental courses for beginners, giving you the confidence that you start with a clear understanding and good practice, to advanced courses in specific areas such as surfacing, sheet metal, simulation and more. Using official and authorised PTC University training materials, we deliver tailored and bespoke training courses, either by remote learning, at our offices in Birmingham or Dublin, or visiting you on site. All our trainers are qualified and experienced. Indeed, many of our customers return to us for training for many years. Do get in touch with us regarding any training requirements. We'll be happy to discuss and plan what you want to achieve with your training and recommend suitable and effective learning pathways for yourself and your team. Taking the time to get your Creo installations correct from the start and putting in some sensible and planned structure in the way it looks and behaves really pays dividends. Managing your licenses and software installations and part templates will mean that your Creo will be personalised to your own specific requirements and provide you with class-leading, cutting-edge and proven software that will allow your team to deliver quality products. Of course, if you have any questions related to any of the content we've covered today, please do get in touch with us here at Concurrent Engineering, either by phone or email. We'll be pleased to hear from you.